You hate your job. Maybe it is the commute. Maybe it is the manager who reads your messages a little too fast. Maybe it is the feeling that nobody would notice if you simply disappeared for a week. But somewhere in Egypt, 4,000 years ago, a man spent his entire career polishing the fingernails of a king, and he was proud of it. He had it carved into his tomb wall so the gods would remember him for it forever. The real answer to what counted as a good job back then is far stranger than anything on your resume today. Picture the Nile at sunrise, reed boats drifting, farmers already knee-deep in mud, the smell of wet clay rising off the riverbank. Now picture a separate world entirely, walled off from all of that, where a person's whole identity was built around a single, oddly specific task. Ancient Egypt did not just have farmers and pharaohs. It had a staggering menu of professions so narrow, so strange, that most of them would not survive one round of a modern job interview. So what did people actually do for a living in the shadow of the pyramids? Start with the manicurist. Yes, a royal manicurist. Archaeologists uncovered the tomb of two men named Khnum and Khnumhotep, who served under King Niuserre during the 5th dynasty. Their official title, carved directly into the tomb wall, translates to overseer of the manicurists of the palace. Not a nickname, not a joke, a real, respected government post, passed down like a family trade. Egyptologist Joyce Tildesley has pointed out that royal grooming was treated as a matter of state importance because the king's body was considered a bridge between humans and the gods. A chipped nail was not vanity. It was a theological problem. If the king's hands looked imperfect, the entire order of the universe felt a little less stable. Strange, right? Then there were the professional mourners. When someone wealthy died, their family did not simply cry in private. They hired women, often called the kites, to walk behind the funeral procession, wailing, tearing at their clothes, throwing dust on their own heads in public view of the whole town. These women were paid performers of grief, trained to escalate their sobbing at exactly the right moment in the procession. Their job was to make sorrow visible enough that the gods themselves would notice. The louder and more theatrical the mourning, the more honored the dead was believed to be. You planned your funeral soundtrack in advance, negotiated a fee, and expected a performance. Can you imagine hiring someone today just to sob dramatically at your farewell party on a fixed rate per wail? Now go underground, literally, to the tomb builders. In the village of Deir el-Medina, an entire community of skilled laborers lived and worked exclusively on royal tombs in the Valley of the Kings. Archaeologist Barry Kemp has spent decades studying this site, and what he found upends the image of slaves dragging stone in the desert sun. These were paid professionals, scribes, painters, plasterers, sculptors. They lived in a purpose-built village with their own local gossip, their own scandals, their own court disputes over property. They received rations of grain, fish, and beer as wages on a fixed schedule, like an actual payroll system with actual paperwork. But sometimes, the payroll broke down. Historian Andrea McDowell has translated one of the most remarkable documents to survive from this period, now known as the Turin Strike Papyrus. It records the moment under Ramesses III when the tomb workers' wages arrived late, again. So what did they do? They put down their tools. They walked off the job. They marched to the mortuary temple gates and sat down, refusing to work until they were paid what they were owed. This is, as far as we can tell, the first recorded labor strike in human history. Not in a factory, not in a coal mine. In a tomb built for a king, 3,000 years before unions existed, and it worked. Records suggest officials scrambled to deliver back pay within days. There is also the job nobody wanted, and yet somebody had to have it. Certain priests and palace attendants were assigned formal duties tied to the pharaoh's most private hygiene. Titles referencing the care of the king's linens, his sandals, even his chamber pot, appear in the historical record with total seriousness. Someone, somewhere, held the formal job title connected to the ruler's bathroom needs and treated it as a career milestone worth documenting. It sounds humiliating by modern standards, but in a culture where merely touching the king was a rare and dangerous privilege, this job placed you closer to a living god than almost anyone else in the entire country. Proximity outranked dignity every single time. And then there were the snake charmers and scorpion handlers whose job was to walk the edges of grain stores, temples, and construction sites, hunting venomous creatures before they could hurt a priest or a scribe. Egypt's deserts were full of horned vipers and thick-tailed scorpions, both capable of killing a grown man within hours if left untreated. These handlers developed practical anti-venom knowledge passed down through apprenticeship, memorizing which plants slowed a sting and which bites needed immediate cutting and suction long before anyone understood how venom worked at a biological level. One mistake, one grab in the wrong spot, and the job ended permanently, sometimes within the same afternoon. Do not forget the embalmers either, whose entire craft depended on knowledge nobody else was allowed to fully learn. Mummification workshops operated almost like guarded trade secrets, passed from father to son, because the process of removing organs, drying a body with natron salt for weeks, and wrapping it in hundreds of yards of linen was considered sacred technology. Getting it wrong did not just ruin a body. Egyptians believed it could trap a soul permanently between worlds, unable to reach the afterlife at all. Imagine carrying that kind of pressure into work every single morning. Here is the twist that makes all of this stranger than it first appears. None of these jobs were considered lowly, no matter how they sound to modern ears. A manicurist could be buried with the honor of a nobleman. A tomb painter could leave behind more personal letters and complaints than most pharaohs did. An embalmer's family name could carry more local respect than a soldier's. Status in ancient Egypt was not always about the nature of the task itself. It was about proximity. Proximity to the king, proximity to the sacred, proximity to death, which the Egyptians treated as the most important event of a person's entire life. The strangeness of the job mattered less than who or what it connected you to. Now bring this back to you, sitting wherever you are sitting right now, reading this on a screen that would have looked like pure sorcery to a 5th dynasty scribe. You probably think your job title sounds ordinary: analyst, coordinator, assistant manager. But somewhere inside every modern career is the same ancient instinct quietly at work. You want your labor to matter to someone. You want proximity, whether that is proximity to a company mission you actually believe in, to a boss whose approval you crave more than you would admit, or simply the feeling that your work connects to something bigger than a paycheck landing in your account. The tomb workers went on strike not because they hated their jobs, but because the job meant enough to them that being disrespected by it felt completely unbearable.
So the next time you complain about your Monday, remember the man whose entire life's work was another man's fingernails and who considered it an honor worth carving into stone for eternity. Your job might feel small. His did too, until you realize he was standing closer to a god than almost anyone else alive. Maybe the real question was never what job is worth doing. Maybe it was always who you get to stand next to while you do it.